Yo, what's going on, Latin Wealth family? Welcome back to another episode. Got a very exciting topic and articles that we're going to speak about today, specifically about the growth of Puerto Rico. We're going to be looking at an article that's shedding some light on some light or setting some potential growth on the future of Puerto Rico. And a direct quote from the article saying Puerto Rico is at a major turning point after years of economic stagnation. The island is finally in a time where it can have a real chance to grow. So we're going to be breaking this down. The person that wrote this article is Francisco Rodriguez Castro, who is the president and CEO of Berlin Capital. So we're going to be breaking it down and kind of dissecting. I thought it was a phenomenal article, well written. So we're going to be looking at this and stay tuned for the whole episode as we go through everything in this article. Before we do, the holidays are here. Jeremiah, how you feeling? How you doing?
I think most people you see that breath. I think most people feel the way I do, and they're like, "Yeah, the holidays are here, but there's still so much to do. There's a bunch of grind." A little tidbit, folks. No matter what you're doing, make sure you take time to be present. I'm
Yeah,
working on that, so I'll say that.
I love it. Look, we're going to be diving into this article. I'm going to read a little something from the article. It's very lengthy, so I'm going to also attach it in the description of this podcast episode. So, with that being said, it says nations do not rise by accident, they rise when their people decide that potential is no longer enough. Puerto Rico's future will not be written in the stars, but in the choices that we make together here now by defining and delivering the agenda we set today. All right, so that was the introduction to this article, right? And so, where do we start with this? I think the biggest thing that I want to start with is essentially what this article is about is Puerto Rico's untapped potential. Puerto Rico has the talent and the industrial strength, one of the strongest manufacturing bases in the Western Hemisphere. Advanced industries like pharmaceuticals, biotech, medical devices, and aerospace. Puerto Rico has a strong geographical position for global supply chain. Also, we know this. Puerto Rico has a huge population of skilled, educated, and resilient people. All right. So, as it says, potential alone is not enough. As we know, the island has seen some slower growth, low labor participation, high poverty, and also we've seen people leaving the island as well. So, before we get into the 12 transformative goals for Puerto Rico 2030, Jeremiah, what are your thoughts, initial thoughts on this article when we were discussing it?
You have to come here and you have to experience, right? You have to see what it is to actually see this in person, like in real time. And what I mean by that is like the 47% poverty rate that's in Puerto Rico. And it's not something that you just, like they said, it's not by happenstance, it didn't just happen. This is a systematic thing that's occurred over decades, over years. And I mean, for how long have people sat and actually debated? And we talk about this all the time, Chris. People love to talk. I mean, as
Hmm.
Puerto Ricans, we do a bunch of talking. We love talking, right? Well, who actually has the skill set and the actual plan to make things better? Because Puerto Rico, for the longest time, has just been on the losing end of multiple different rules and regulations, right? Different things that were set up to make sure that Puerto Rico was always dependent upon the US. And so now, with this plan, I think in the article, it's some clear, like precise, tangible goals that we can actually accomplish. And to let people know in Puerto Rico, we actually do have the necessary things that we need to be successful. I think sometimes people, question that, Chris. I don't know if you've ever like talked to people and stuff, but I think people question if it can even be done or if we even have the things necessary to be successful as Puerto Rico. And this is outlining and saying, this is what you have here. I don't know if you know that you have this, but there's a long list of industries and things that you can do out of Puerto Rico. And it's in prime position to do these things. So this is, that's what I got when I'm looking at the article. And I'm like, man, hopefully people listen. We got to send what is our governor's name? Gonzalez, we gotta send her a note wherever she's at. Send her an email like, hey, pay attention to this.
Yeah, wherever she's at. So that's interesting because um, I do believe a big component to this is what you said, that belief system. Do you believe that we can do this? Because if you don't, all these numbers, all these ideas, all this effort to me goes to waste if you don't believe that we can accomplish this as an island.
Exactly. And I mean, a lot of the disbelief is, it's relevant and it's actually, it's credible, right? It's due to
Hmm.
years and decades of not doing something better and just seeing the politicians come in, the corruption, money being spent in other places than where it should be. So a lot of the disbelief is believable. If
Hmm.
that, not to be, create a pun, but it's believable. I can see where people have a lack of
It's
belief
valid.
because it hasn't happened. Yeah, it's super valid.
100%. So this is, by the way, just scroll up to the top of the article if you guys wanted to see it. And again, I'm going to link it down below if you guys want to check it out. But here are the 12 transformative goals for Puerto Rico 2030. There's obviously 12 of them. So we'll go through each one. And at the end, we'll kind of discuss a couple of them. Number one, legislative total economic freedom. Build number two, build a high value industrial knowledge economy contributing 25% of GNP. Number three, create 300,000 high quality private sector jobs. Number four, raise labor participation to 60%, reduce unemployment to 4%, modernize and streamline government operations and permitting, increase median household income by 40%, transform the education to workforce pipeline, increase local agricultural production to 30%, establish a reliable, resilient, affordable 21st century energy grid. Number 11, position Puerto Rico as a global strategic hub for life sciences, nearshoring, aerospace, and dual use innovation. Number 12, achieve real GNP sustainable growth above 4%.
And that's crazy. That's a
And
phenomenal list.
it is a phenomenal list. And I love that it seems like there was some thought and it was strategic creating this list. It wasn't just like, we need to fix the energy grid. We need to get people, we need to get jobs. We need to, it's specific. There's numbers, there's data. So I love the way this was broken down.
Number 10, I mean, I know they're not listed in order of priority. Number 10 should be number one. And I think that's something that
Yeah.
pretty much everybody talks about is obviously making sure that the grid can handle any of this because that's the infrastructure. You're not going to be able to do manufacturing. You're not going to be able to renew the petroleum stuff in the South. Like you're not going to be able to actually make Puerto Rico better if you don't have the energy necessary to make that happen. And we've done several shows where we've talked about the grid and the various different agencies that have controlled the money and misappropriated and all these things. We had Jason on and we've talked about some of the solutions that people
Hmm.
here that have boots on ground that are actually trying to create that. But that's number one for me because you won't be able to do anything else. I think
Hmm.
number two is the actual legislation part, right?
I
The
think it was this one. This one.
government operation permit. Yeah, so that's probably number three. Number two, I think go up to the top, Chris. That
Oh,
legislate total economic freedom. What
yep.
they're saying is cut the Jones Act.
Mm,
That's what they're saying.
mm.
Because you won't be able to do any of the other things that are listed on here if you're not able to control your economy there from Puerto Rico.
And so
No.
this should have clearly it should have a trickle down effect of potentially reducing unemployment and potentially raising, median income by
Yes.
40%.
Yeah, because I mean, if you look at it, a lot of the stuff is outsourced, and Dominican Republic is what, 70 miles from the west coast of Puerto Rico, and we can't have a boat with plantains coming from Dominican Republic. It has to go to Miami, right? Which adds fuel costs, which adds additional logistical issues.
Hmm.
Book in Miami, be stamped, and then come to Puerto Rico.
Yep.
So imagine the inefficiency, right? Not only that, imagine how food could get spoiled and different things. So what I'm saying is if we're able to control our own political wherewithal and control where stuff comes in, how we trade, how we move, autonomously, then it would trickle down to everything else.
Yeah. I had a question about your thoughts on number three. Create 300,000 high quality private sector jobs. What does that specifically look like to you? What stuck out to you about that?
We know that the
Is that bringing more, not to cut you off. I asked you a
go ahead.
question and now I'm cutting you off.
Go ahead.
I
Go
do
ahead.
that a lot, bro. Is that bringing some companies from the United States over to Puerto Rico as what we see in like Panama and Costa Rica doing as well? Doing something like that?
I think that it's utilizing some of the legislation that's already in place right now, right? You have Act 60, right, which is the where you can bring in foreign entities and foreign companies, and it's built to actually attract those foreign companies. But we need to add some clauses to that that says you can't get the tax deductions, right, or the flat corporate tax rate if you're not going to employ Puerto Rican citizens. So we have to add the clause in and say, hey, 75% of your these jobs that we have coming in, if we're bringing in pharmaceutical companies, which was very strong in Puerto Rico, if we're bringing in, various different biomed and all these manufacturing jobs that were seeking to come in. We even had, oil and gas in the southern part of Puerto Rico. If we're bringing all these back, you have to hire 75 to 80% Puerto
Mm-hmm.
Rican citizens, right? And people that are actually qualified for those jobs. You talked about us having a massive amount of people that are highly educated, right?
Mm-hmm.
STEM is very, very huge in Puerto Rico. And so you have a massive amount of engineers and mathematicians that are coming out. What you do is you create that pipeline, just like it says there, where you're going through school and college that leads to jobs that are created via Act 60, right? But you put in place those rules and those caveats that you got to hire the people from the University of Puerto Rico. You have to
Mm-hmm.
bring those people to your jobs. You can't bring in people from the outside. You got to hire these people. I
Yeah, I
think
think that
to
goes.
me,
Yeah.
that's what that looks like. Utilizing all of these 12 things, right? There's multiple different steps that are dependent upon the other. And so it's using what's in place that's already there that you can utilize, but you have to strategize and you got to, actively, this has to be a focus, like the
Mm-hmm.
article saying. You have to be doing this purposefully. You can't fall into this. You can't just create legislation and say, oh, well, it'll just get better. No, you have to enact this. You have to clean out, whatever is causing problems right now. You have to redo your political system and probably just get rid of all the parties, all
Mm-hmm.
of them, and just start with something that's actually focused on making Puerto Rico better.
So I have a question about that. How does that work? Do you like, help us understand how does that work? If you want to eliminate the party system, or yeah, if we want to do that, do we need to create another entity or another party to help? Like, how does that work?
So there's excuse me, in this most recent election, do you remember there was a third party, an independent party,
Yeah,
that was headed by Mr. Damal.
yeah.
So that party probably won the election, by the way, because we still don't have the results of what the actual count of the election was. But how about focusing on supporting that
Mm,
third party, that independent party that was actually
got you.
bringing things that were super influential and important to make Puerto Rico better, actually focusing on Puerto Rico. So what you could do is stop voting, right, for either of the parties that it's going back and forth, the pendulum that's swinging, and vote for the independent party, someone that's actually going to try to make Puerto Rico better.
Mm,
That's what I would do because it is a power vacuum that's created by both of those parties, and all you do is swing back and forth, and things never get better.
yeah. So that's interesting because that kind of brings us to the next point, which is a huge problem in Puerto Rico is that it's overregulated, not under power. So people often describe Puerto Rico as a small, struggling economy, but there are some data and analytics that say a different story. And for example, Puerto Rico's manufacturing strength is world class. So if you guys were to have to, so I'll say this, um, manufacturing is 46.3% of the island's GDP. 46.3% of the island's GDP. If you guys were to rank maybe United States, Germany, South Korea, Singapore, like where would you assume Puerto Rico falls on that line, right? Where would you think? I think a lot of people would assume that they would probably be below all those countries,
At the
right?
bottom, that's probably
At
where
the
they.
bottom. But for comparison, The United States is at 11%, Germany's at 19%, South Korea is at 25, Singapore's at 21. And so the island's exports is 63.06 billion in manufacturing goods annually, representing 96.5% of all merchandise exports. Um, yeah, and as we mentioned before, this includes different medical devices, biotech, pharmaceuticals, and things of that nature, and also aerospace components as well. So again, 46.3% of Puerto Rico's GDP in 2024 and 2025 came from manufacturing.
So you have to imagine, I want you guys to think about like, excuse me, the overall the push from a certain group of people, right, that's telling you that Puerto Rico's trash. That's called a propaganda and a smear tactic. And so what you do is you tell people that a place is horrible and that it's this or that, and you paint a picture that's not accurate, right? And if people have never come here from America, then they don't know what's actually happening. These are the real numbers. You're not speaking about the very educated people that are coming in, right, from our universities. You're not talking about 96.5% of all goods that leave here is from highly skilled manufacturing, right? You're not talking about that. You're not talking about the opportunities. But, but now, juxtaposed to that, when something happens, the military and everyone comes to Puerto Rico. So you're
Hmm.
not important, right? We're going to say you're not important, and the things that you produce is not important because we want to control it. And that's a mental thing, right? That's a whole mentality that's trying to be spread about Puerto Rico. And in actual facts is that it's very important, very crucial in the positioning of the Caribbean for the United States. And the things that it's producing are life-saving for people. Without these things, life would be different for the people in the United States. And so I think that that's a very key fact that people should notice because I hear different conversations and it's never positive really about Puerto Rico.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And there are some negative aspects that we want to get into as well.
Sure.
I think it was the economic freedom deficit. So this is what we also want to talk about. And look, this also comes from Puerto Rico being the lowest in government spending, taxes, and labor freedom. So what is the results of these different things? What is the results of a country supposed to be backing the island and really them not caring? You're going to get low labor participation, low income. You're going to get high poverty rates,
Yeah.
and so again, we spoke about this multiple times on this platform. If Puerto Rico was officially a state, it would be ranked 51st in economic
Hmm.
freedom of North American Index. 51st. And what the crazy thing is, let me see if I can get the number. So the 50th state is New York. And what's the number? What's the number? It is
California's 49th.
they
Oh, go
are,
ahead.
but I'm looking for their score. That's what I'm looking for. So they got Puerto Rico got a score of 2.13, one third of the U.S. average. All right. So Puerto Rico at 51 gets a score of 2.13. For comparison, New York is at 50, 4.25. California 4.44 at 49. And if you guys want to know who was number one, New Hampshire number one at 8.13. So their score on this totem pole is 2.13, one third of the U.S. average. And I would pull up this picture, but it's kind of blurry.
So there's something to think about in those numbers, though. Those other places that you mentioned, they're actual states, right? And so
Correct.
their sovereignty and the ability to actually control to get to that 4 point whatever, right, on that score is because they have that sovereignty. Now, I want you to think about the freedom, right, of the actual economic situations. You mentioned two key states. New York and California are
Hmm.
Democratic states, right? They're blue states. Now, here's what's crazy. The actual production or the actual income, right? Or the economy in those states are the highest in the United States.
Hmm.
So having political control of the economy doesn't directly correlate to being a downed economy. It just does in Puerto Rico because it's not a state, it's a commonwealth. And so the control is absolute. The state or the commonwealth doesn't have that control to be able to control, create treaties, grow their economy. California is the fifth largest economy in the world. It passed up Japan, the whole country of Japan, right?
Mm,
And so I'm saying that to say, and we all know New York is the financial epicenter. So you can't directly correlate, oh, they don't have the freedom to, it's not going to produce economically. You need that sovereignty. So what does that mean? Either you need to be independent or you need to go ahead and be a state. But the
mm,
middle ground and the status quo of where we're at, that's not going to work. You got to
not working.
choose one or the other.
Not working. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that brings me to the last again, this is a look how long this article is. Very, very long article.
It's a phenomenal article.
Also, it's very informative though. I would highly encourage you guys to check it out and read through it and whatnot. But what was also brought up in the article is, hey, what's the hope? Where is the silver lining? We spoke about, some of the disadvantages. And so now this article is basically going into the reshoring wave and the Trump tariff advantage. So this individual feels that the Trump tariffs could benefit the island of Puerto Rico, with them being in a strong position to have tariff-free access to the U.S. market, compliance with U.S. federal standards, the FDA, the EPA, also strong industrial workforce and infrastructure. um, yeah, so he's arguing like, look, with the United States potentially bringing, or they're attempting to bring manufacturing back to the States, Puerto Rico can massively benefit from this, as we know that they are a manufacturing hub for different items. What are your thoughts about that when you've seen that? I know we have, we spoke about it a couple times on the podcast where we don't really know if that's the right move for the United States, bringing manufacturing back to the states. But what are your thoughts about that when they say that Puerto Rico could potentially benefit from it?
It needs to be different. Excuse me, it needs to be different type of manufacturing. Um, The manufacturing that Trump specifically is talking about, it's 40 to 50 years aged. That's not going to help America, right? We're in the AI race. I've said this several times before. You need to be looking at vertically integrated industries that is going to help in the AI race, right? It's not a bubble. It's not going to go anywhere. This stuff is here to stay. So you need to be looking at chip creation, raw earth metal processing. Can you
Mm,
put that type of, manufacturing in Puerto Rico, raw earth metals, right, to help with the chip production? Can you create foundries in Puerto Rico? Can you create chip manufacturing plants, right? You have the space, you got the sun, so you could do solar powered, actual manufacturing plants, create little microgrids that'll overproduce power that'll help with the grid. And so it takes strategic thought, not the manufacturing that they're talking about. That's aged manufacturing. It doesn't help us. That's not going to help Puerto Rico because what it does is then keep you dependent upon the United States in a certain aspect while not having the control, while not having the voting rights, while not having the things that you need to actively build out a great infrastructure for a great economy. And so, yes, bring manufacturing, but the type of manufacturing that you're bringing needs to be controlled as well.
mm. I love that. And so you recently moved to Puerto Rico this year. What makes you, as we start to wrap up this conversation, and you read through this, and you're having dialogue with people on the island, what makes you optimistic about the future of Puerto Rico?
What makes me optimistic is, funny enough, Bad Bunny can come here and sell out 31 dates and actually bring the attention that's needed and keep the money here. It's people that are actively pro Puerto Rico 100%.
Hmm.
People that are looking to bring money here and keep the money here. People that are looking to make this place better. Young people that are actively getting involved in politics and actively getting involved in economics, challenging the status quo, challenging the infrastructure of power that's been in place for years. Why don't we have a better grid? Why, like all of those things? That's what makes me optimistic because for years, probably 20, 30 years, everyone's just gone along with it. We
Hmm.
complain, we talk crap, And if you don't like it bad enough, what do? You move to the United States,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm seeing also programs ushering people back from the states of diaspora and bringing them back to Puerto Rico and actively seeing people that have the skill sets to create a better Puerto Rico in the future. I'm seeing those people here working together, creating collaborative efforts and making sure that we can do this within a short period of time. So I'm super optimistic. You know,
Yeah.
people like Jason, we talked to Jason, we interviewed him. There's people like that that are coming back from Pennsylvania, New York, California, right? All these other places and are coming back and saying, hey, we want to make Puerto Rico better. It's important to us that this place stay here and that we make it better and become the shining light of the Caribbean. That's what makes me optimistic.
Yeah, I love that you said the challenging of the status quo because for so
Yeah.
long the information that was given to us or how we would live was just we just accepted it,
Yeah.
right? We just accepted, okay, this is how it is, right? But it does take a group of individuals and independent thinkers to say, yo, this isn't right, and we're capable of doing a lot more. Like this gentleman in this article says, like, hey, we have the potential, but just saying that we have potential is not enough, right? Just like you're wearing a football hat, Texas
Yeah.
Longhorn. You know, when you get drafted, they hey he has the potential to be
Great
the best
potential.
player.
Yeah.
That don't mean nothing.
Doesn't.
That don't mean nothing. So, I love that you brought that up, and I do believe there is a large population of Puerto Ricans that are changing the way they think, and a lot of them are younger. Most of them are younger.
Yeah, and that's a blessing. I mean, the thought process of Puerto Rico will change, right? I mean, people have been willing to accept the way things have been because they've been downtrodden and stuff like that. But the younger generation, millennials and Generation Z, they're not accepting that anymore. And so what I see is the changes will come, and you'll have to fight, and we'll have to implement a lot of different changes in our mentality as a people. But I see that changing. And I see actively different podcasts. I see people fighting and pushing
Mm,
for things to be better in Puerto Rico. And so that makes me optimistic because you never saw that before.
mm,
So I'm appreciative of that.
yeah, 100%. Let us know what you guys think about this article down below. What are you guys' overall thoughts? Um, yeah, well, are you optimistic about the future of Puerto Rico? If you're not Puerto Rican and maybe you're from a different country, let us know, what your thoughts are on your homeland as well. With that being said, it's the Latin Wealth family. We'll catch you on the next one. Peace.
Peace, guys.